Fam, I'm about to hit a major life milestone. I'm turning 30. Yeah, who would have thought? Me, Donchi, a full-fledged adult. But times like these make me reflect on my life, past dreams, achievements, hobbies, and it's crazy to think that at one point, I didn't care for this madhouse that is YouTube. Nah, back in the day, I wanted to create manga. Yup, before I was pulling all-nighters to get these videos out, I was pulling all-nighters to draw. I ended up creating my own story and had big plans for what I was building. I'm talking fighting games, a movie, a TV series, and all that. However, the overwhelming difficulty of starting something like that meant that many of those ideas never saw the light of day. Until now. Today, I want to share the story of what could have been. So get some snacks, sit back, and relax as I recount the tale of how I tried creating my own manga. Growing up, I was your textbook weeb. While most kids I knew were watching wrestling, 106 in Park, and random stuff on MTV, I was knee-deep in cartoons, Pokemon, and whatever anime happened to be on Toonami. It didn't matter what, when Toonami was on, I was locked in. And to say all that was my life would be an understatement. I looked up to the characters that shaped those fictional worlds, and daydreamed about what it'd be like to be in those places fighting alongside them. Thoughts like that filled me with so much energy that I needed an outlet. So, I used LARPing. For those who don't know, LARPing is live-action role-playing. I didn't know what role-playing even meant back then, so I just called it using my imagination. It started with me in my backyard, running around and making sound effects as if I were some hero in an anime. Probably looked like a maniac to my neighbors. My cousins sometimes tagged along, and we'd recreate those scenarios with toys. Later, I remember a few of my close friends joining the fun too. It was dope. What's crazy is that without even knowing it, we were basically doing multiple D&D runs. It got hard remembering what characters were capable of, so we started writing down details to keep track of everything. These LARPing sessions slowly evolved into slightly more original stories. We were still stealing power systems from fiction we liked, but we created unique characters with their own motives. However, deep down, I wanted something more. I liked imagining everything, but I wanted to visualize the stories I thought of and make them real. But I couldn't draw. And the mere thought of me picking up a pencil and drafting coherent images seemed impossible at the time. I concluded that I wasn't talented enough and dropped the idea. Instead, I started writing. Just like with the LARPing, I started off creating fan fiction. I had this ongoing DBZ story about a fusion of Goku and Krillin called Go Krillin. It was just a power fantasy involving them one-shotting everything I could think of, but I was like 9, so leave me alone. Unfortunately though, over time, the writing stopped filling that creative void. I was once again battling the idea of drawing. I really wanted to, but straight up, I didn't want to do the work. Being bad at things sucked. I just wanted to think, and boom, art. And let me be clear, this is not the way. Art takes practice, practice, and more practice. The only way to improve is to do the work. That's what younger Donchi needed to hear. Luckily, my godbrother showed me the light. One day, we and a bunch of other family members were chillin', watching what I remember to be Lord Slug on VHS. That DBZ movie with the bomb-ass soundtrack and fake Super Saiyan mode. The whole time we were watching, I noticed my godbrother rigorously scratching away at some printing paper with his pencil. Once he finished, I saw Goku on his paper. He drew Goku and it was good. That probably sounds underwhelming, but seeing that shit as a kid blew my fucking mind. If he could do it, then what the hell was stopping me? From then on, art became my passion. I began with DBZ and couldn't stop. Whenever I got into something new, anime, cartoons, or video games, I had to draw it. Didn't matter where, in class, in the car, I'd even skip lunch to focus on my craft. This went on for years. And funny enough, for all that talk about trying to create my own thing, I was content with just drawing stuff that I liked and molding my skills that way. I truly wish I could show you my drawings from this time, but this is before I started scanning my art and saving it on my computer, so I have no idea where any of this shit is. Here is a little recreation of how I remember it looking though. Don't laugh. Nah, I'm kidding, you could laugh. It's pretty bad. The next pivotal moment on my artistic path wouldn't happen until I finished 7th grade. That's when I found a special website that genuinely opened my eyes. Deviant Art. It has officially been 1 year since I last saw my conscience. Now, I know that may sound strange for the people new here, so let me explain. Unlike your conscience, that little voice in your head that tries to stray you away from making crazy-ass decisions, mine is loud. Very loud. And, how do I put this? Oh, jeez!
I'm back, bitch.
Can be kind of a dick.
Thank you. You're far too kind. What's good, YouTube? Yo, don't you? I've got
You
some.
mind telling me what the hell you're doing here?
Whoa, rude.
Oh, I'm being rude?
Yeah, you're being rude. I haven't been here in how long now? And now I'm back with good news and a new sword, and you have not one good thing to say about my new sword, bro. That's crazy. All you gotta say is, what the hell are you doing here? That's crazy, bro. I thought we were boys.
Huh. Interesting perspective. Let me tell you mine. You leave for a year without telling anyone, might I add. Then you come back talking about how you traveled across the multiverse, started fights, and got the cops on your ass.
While you were here talking about your manoir and all that shit, I was on a journey of self-discovery and smoke.
Wait, smoke? Bro, what did you—
But that story is for another time. I'm afraid it's too real for your puny minds to handle in just one video. Just, if the multiversal police come through, I was never here.
Multiversal? What are you—
Gee, I must be talking to myself because I definitely just said it's for another time. Now, let's finish talking about these bullies getting bodied.
Alright.
Hey, everybody who got the smoke deserved it.
That's not the point, conscience. You're back here after spending another year MIA, acting like everything's cool, like you aren't a freaking fugitive.
Oh, that's what you're mad about? Bro, chill. That shit's been squashed.
Squashed? You squash it with the multiversal police? How?
Bro, the details don't matter. I did a few favors and shit got squared away. That's it.
You're being awfully vague about—
Nigga, it's squashed. It doesn't matter anymore. It's not even the reason why I'm... Look, my bad for leaving and not telling you anything, okay? I'm sorry. But fam, screw all that. I may have stumbled across the opportunity of a lifetime. I just need you to shut up and hear me out.
Many of you may be familiar with Deviant Art because of the AI controversy. However, back in my day, this was one of the best places to post your art and find more. You risked encountering NSFW content occasionally, but if we're being real, finding stuff like hentai was hella common on any art platform back then. Now, I don't remember who introduced me to this site, but I do remember the account that made me want to start posting shit and improve as much as possible. It was someone named Ozzy057. And fam, I kid you not, I haven't looked this dude up since like 2010, maybe? And I still know his username by heart. That's how you know it was real. The first thing that caught my eye about Ozzy's art was how professional it looked. This was around 2007, so you gotta understand that getting into digital art as a hobbyist, especially for an 8th grader like me, was pretty difficult and expensive. To get started, I had to beg my parents for a drawing tablet, connect it to my shitty-ass laptop that made it lag, find a way to get Photoshop CS3 for free because that price was insane, then fight myself for hours trying to relearn how to draw without looking down at what I'm drawing. And it didn't help that the lines were always slightly off. Maybe it was my system, maybe my computer always made the lines squiggly, but my lines were never straight. I didn't even use the drawing tablet for drawing. I ended up using the pen tool on Photoshop to just make really precise curves and stuff. It got me so mad because I was like, I could do this with the mouse. When my girlfriend showed me how you can just draw on your iPad using Procreate now, I lost my shit. Yes, the iPad is still expensive, but it is a lot more convenient to have everything you need right there. So when I saw Ozzy's art looking that crisp, I was like, oh nah, this dude's legit. So I studied his art like it was the Bible. It reminded me of Kishimoto style but with his own unique flair. I really wanted to get on his level, so he low-key became my sensei without even knowing it. But something else that made Ozzy stand out to me was that he had his own series. It was called Naruto Aledia. And fam, even now what homie had cooking looked fucking amazing. I have to say it again in real life because that's how dope it was. Fucking amazing. It was a fan manga meant to follow the story of the 5 members of International Ninja Squad 3.2. These special groups were a concept he invented. Each teammate was from a different village, so they were low-key like Ninja Power Rangers, and their designs were so cool. Unfortunately, he couldn't continue working on it because of class, but it did what it had to do for me. I wanted to improve my art, and the urge to create my own story was kicking in hard. So, I started with an OC. I loved Naruto at the time, so I placed him in that universe. I gave him a new Kekkei Genkai called the Seshugan. I didn't really have a use for it, I just thought the eye shit was cool. I also didn't know it was called a Kekkei Genkai at the time, so I called it his special eye technique. But I needed a name, something unique and bold, so I did what any sensible person would do. Yup, I derived the name of my OC from some random Japanese name translator I found on Google. Honestly, it could have been wrong. For his last name, I chose Shido, cause it just sounded cool. And with that, I posted my character sheet on Deviant Art, and did absolutely nothing with it. Don't get me wrong, I imagined a bunch of adventures that he could have gone on, and even created a rival for him named Raigen, but no manga, nothing. The hype was there when the idea was fresh, but it died once I had started putting pen to paper. Once again, young Dochi did not want to put the work in. So I continued posting more fan art and drawing more OCs who would lead to nothing. But the universe works in mysterious ways. Every time laziness won, someone or something was thrown into my life to put me back on track. This time, it was a fellow artist I met in high school. We can call him Nux. So one day, I'm chilling in world history class, drawing, being antisocial, doing my thing. Then Nux pulls up and is like, "Oh shit, did you draw that?" And me, excited for a possible compliment, is like, "Yeah, you wanna see?" Nux takes a look, and then, with a confident smile, says, "Wow, this is garbage. Like, complete ass. Did you just start drawing? Cause, my god." The name's Nux, by the way. I'm kidding. It wasn't that bad. He was frank about the flaws in my work though, which stung at first, but it helped. Then I saw his art, and just like with Ozzy, I was like, oh nah, he legit. I'd say this is where the drive to improve really made my art evolve. At this point, I was living in Georgia and didn't have a lot of people I could relate with. Nux became my rival and closest friend there. I drew even more because I wanted to keep up with him. And when we weren't drawing, we were deadass telling each other all the ideas we had for our characters. It was invigorating. However, I think the growth made me less satisfied with my creations. Not because I thought I was making trash, but because my OC, Makasu, was at most just a fan character. I liked Naruto, so I based his first iteration on that. Then I got into FMA, so I gave Makasu Automail. That was a terrible choice. Like, my god, out of all the things I drew between 2007 and 2009, this shit makes me cringe the most. Wait, actually, this is the piece from that time that makes me cringe the most. There was this comic online called Powerpuff Girls D. It was this fan manga that pretty much put a bunch of Cartoon Network IPs in an anime with the Powerpuff Girls and Dexter as the leads. The plot got weird and hard to follow sometimes, but I really messed with the art style, so that's where this bug-eyed mess came from. Anyway, I wanted to make an OC that was more original, but I had no idea where to start. However, remember what I said about the universe working in mysterious ways? Well, another canon event was about to go down. It was Halloween 2008. Two of my other friends and I decided to have a boys' night in to nerd out, eat junk food, and play video games. I'll call them Inuyasha and Itsuki. By the way, if anybody from the story is watching, hello, how you doing? Hope life's treating you well. But after downing an unholy amount of Papa John's, we got to playing the fighting game Soul Calibur 4. Now, Soul Calibur 4 was special to me because it was the first one that I played after the greatness that was Soul Calibur 2 on GameCube, and it had character creation. I didn't know that until we started playing. So after getting a couple of rounds in, Itsuki suggested that we make our own characters and duke it out. And me? Y'all already know. I love making me some characters. With this game's character creation, you picked an existing fighter from the roster and pretty much built someone completely new based on their fighting style. I believe Itsuki chose Killick, I'm almost certain Inuyasha chose Siegfried, and I chose the homie Maxi. I definitely don't have pictures of how they all looked, but I vaguely remember mine looking like my created character from Monster Hunter. So we fought for hours, pretty much until my dad told me it was time to come home. And though it sucked leaving, we left that night beaming with creativity. By the time we came back to school on Monday, We each drew characters based on our created warriors. But see, back then, I didn't respect nunchucks, Maxi's weapon, as much as I do now. I didn't want Makasu using them, and at the time, I was really into Soul Eater. I specifically liked Black Star, so I gave him chain sights instead, and made him a close combat specialist. And wow, this is where it came from. I always want to know why I had such a strong bias towards the melee type characters, and I realize now it was most definitely Black Star. Well, Black Star and the GOAT, Rock Lee. But the chain sights brought up another idea. I thought Shinigami from Soul Eater was a fire-ass rendition of the Grim Reaper. So I looked at the chain sides and was like, boom, backstory. Makasu is the son of the Grim Reaper. Yup, Makasu went from being a ninja to a demigod. But I guess little Donchi thought that wasn't broken enough. Simply making him a demigod was basic. It's been done before. So instead of making him part human and giving him a unique power related to that, I made his mom the Queen of Heaven, the highest level of divinity, and death fused. Fuck demigod, that's like what, a double god? Regardless, I was pleased with my creation. All I needed was a name for the story I was building. Thus, Grim Angel was born. This was a critical step because, in my eyes, the name added legitimacy. It motivated me to do more than just create characters who would amount to nothing. For the rest of high school and the beginning portion of college, I spent as much free time as I could building the world and story of this little passion project. Because I could never make up my mind, it of course went through a bunch of changes, but the final product is something I'm genuinely proud of, even if I never got to complete it. But I think we've gone over enough of my life story. It's time to finally reveal what the hell Grim Angel is even about. Fair warning before we begin, there are many scenarios and characters I never drew, so I'll be using clips and images from anime and video games to fill in the blank spots. Anyway, the world of Grim Angel is very much like ours. The main difference is that here, there's mana. In this universe, mana works very similarly to how it does in Final Fantasy, the Tales of series, and other JRPGs. It's essentially the energy that gives everything life. During the early stages of human civilization, some people learn they can manipulate the mana around and within them to achieve superhuman feats, like emulating the elements or punching holes through mountains. These gifted humans are called adepts. Eventually, schools are formed to teach adepts the fundamentals of mana control. They evolve quickly and work together with regular humans to usher in a long era of peace and growth. Now there are two realms linked to Earth, Heaven and Hell. Like Soul Society from Bleach, these places have their own civilizations with political systems and everything. Heaven is ruled by Queen Jupiter, while Hell is ruled by King Pluto. I originally wanted to base the gods' names on Greek mythology, but naming the Queen of Heaven Zeus sounded off, so I stuck with Roman mythology. Both of these gods are kinda dickheads, but Jupiter more so, at least for now. She sees the mortals as fun little playthings to watch for entertainment, so she and her angels in heaven are like uppity researchers who don't take their subjects seriously. Meanwhile, Pluto and his people are left with the duty of regulating the souls of the dead and quelling any angry souls who don't pass properly. As you can see, Bleach's world building inspired a lot here. Pluto hates this. He's a god, not an overglorified babysitter, but the beings of heaven outmatched them in firepower and technology. The last time they went to war eons ago, he was forced to kneel at Jupiter's feet in front of his whole army. However, with these adepts evolving at such a rapid pace, he finds an opportunity to finally overpower heaven. Normally, gods are limited in how much they can mess with humans, so Pluto can't just pull up to Earth and force the adepts to join him. Plus, if he did that, the queen upstairs would peep game immediately. So he decides to influence the adepts in secret when they're most vulnerable, in their sleep. Through dreams, he shows his victims a possible future where adepts stand above the regular humans as their masters. He makes sure not to show himself in these dreams or say his name, but he does reveal his voice. Some adepts take these dreams as either nonsense or a bad omen. However, a substantial amount of them love what these visions show them. Deep down, they've always felt they were better than the basic-ass humans. This just confirms their beliefs. A small cult known as the High Order is formed to slowly carry out this shared dream. They collectively believe that this voice they hear is their messiah, and the visions, a prophecy. To aid their future leader, they begin building a weapon. Something strong enough to kill anything, even a god. While this is happening, Jupiter's barely giving the shit any mind. She just sees us as humans messing around building new toys. However, her daughter, Victoria, finds all this strange. I had originally planned on naming this character Zelda because this is honestly just a really pretty name, but Zelda from The Legend of Zelda is so well known that she practically owns that name when it comes to fiction, so I just stuck with the Roman god of victory. Victoria tries to warn her mother to look into this, but her pleas are met with a, "You worry too much, daughter. Go back to your studies." Down in hell, Pluto announces his big plan. He intends to use the followers he's amassed to help them defeat Jupiter. Then he'll rule both the realm of the mortals and heaven as their one true god. Many are down, eager to get revenge on the angels and their leader. But there are those who worry about this plan, most notably Pluto's right-hand man, Mors the Grim Reaper. Continuing with the Roman mythology inspiration, Mors is the god of death, pretty much the Roman equivalent to Thanatos. Think of the Grim Reaper as the head of soul management here. He's in charge of judging the majority of them to decide how far in hell they go. This responsibility made him sympathetic toward humans. The fact that Pluto is okay with splitting up their civilization for his own personal gain deeply disturbs him. Plus, the way he sees it, it's not their place to rule over the mortals. So he tries to speak with his king, tells him to chill and rethink all this. But Pluto ignores the advice and tells Mors that he needs to choose a side. He's either with them or against them. The Reaper acquiesces, but in secret, he tells some of his most trusted comrades about his fear. Then, a century later, D-Day arrives. The High Order finishes Pluto's weapon, so the god finally graces them with his presence. But Pluto isn't the same as he was a century ago. See, before this, he solely relied on his raw power and insane mana pool to carry him in battle. However, the adepts prove that there is no limit to what mana is capable of, so he experimented in secret, and eventually learned how to absorb the souls of the dead. This is equivalent to downloading all the data of an individual, their memories, their knowledge, everything that makes them who they are. This morbid ability allowed him to master multiple ways to use mana instantly, and with his excessive mana pool, this just gave him more tools in his arsenal. So when Pluto appears to claim his weapon, he makes a slight change to his plan. He names the blade Durandal, which I got from Fire Emblem, and slays the 5 leaders of the cult, aware that they are the strongest in the room. Then, he proceeds to absorb their souls. The remaining cultists watch in horror, but at this point, Jupiter has seen enough to intervene. She appears with her daughter and a small squad of angels. Mors comes through too. Pluto then challenges Jupiter to a duel. The winner claims everything: heaven, hell, and earth. Victoria begs her mother to deny the request so they can just jump him, but the queen's hubris gets the better of her. With a smirk, she accepts. Losing isn't even a thought right now. She pulls out her sword Excalibur, and the smoke commences. Initially, she maintains the upper hand, bragging that she always was a better swordsman, but this is all a part of Pluto's plan. Once her confidence gets her to make a wild swing, he parries her shit and continues to outplay her. Her expression slowly changes. She goes from jubilant to serious to straight up terrified. It gets to the point where she is forced to kneel for mercy, but Pluto doesn't give a shit. This is his moment. With one swoop, he slays the queen. Without missing a beat, Victoria picks up Excalibur and dashes in to avenge her mother. However, Pluto's smile doesn't leave his face. With a laugh, he says,
"2 gods for the price of 1. Don't mind if I do."
But he feels a burning sensation in his side. He turns to find the source and spots Mors pushing his scythe into his stomach. It's the last thing the Reaper wants to do, but Pluto is going too far. The betterment of the realms comes first. This action enrages the king to no end. So with no other options, Mors and Victoria work together to fight Pluto. The battle lasts for a week, and even with the wound deterring him, the king gives him the work, but eventually he falls. Afterward, the two thank each other, and then head their separate ways. Victoria returns to heaven to mourn the death of her mother, while Mors returns to hell to let his people know what went down. They're both chosen as the leaders of their realms. However, many folks from hell think Pluto wasn't wrong, so they end up defecting and banishing themselves to the outskirts of the realm, far away from any form of civilization. Due to the circumstances, Mors leaves them be. Over the next few centuries, the rebuilding effort for both realms leads to an era of prosperity. Mors and Victoria relinquish the toxic ideal set by their predecessors and form an actual union between their homes. They work together to handle the souls that don't pass properly, and heaven even grants hell some of their tech. Soon enough, shit gets so optimized that Victoria and Mors don't need to do much. They begin meeting casually. Then, a little romance develops. Since things are finally chill in their lives, they come up with a crazy idea. Every part of their being was dedicated to their roles as gods up until now. Why don't they take a little vacation and try living with the humans? Experience what it's like to be normal. The councils of their respective realms let them do as they please, since they've quite literally been carrying everyone. They just need to be ready to return at a moment's notice if they're needed. So, with more excitement than they've ever felt, the two move to New York to begin their new life. But here's the thing. The damage Pluto did with his little dream strategy had severe lasting effects. Though he killed the leaders of the High Order, he still showed them a future where they were on top. Much of the group clung to this belief, so they continued their efforts to make it a reality. This led to many wars, which diminished the population of adepts. Some countries learned to fear these gifted beings, and go as far as to create tech meant to inhibit their abilities. Others let the fear build so much that they start executing the ones who show any sign of aggression. However, there are still countries, most notably the Union, that refuse to treat all these guys as savages. They remember that though their enemies were adepts, many of the heroes who saved their lives were adepts as well. So these places had them live together with the non-gifted humans, just like how things used to be. By the way, the Union is basically this universe's United States. I wanted to make a country that actually cared about the well-being of all, and truly felt like the land of the free that we preach about so much. However, this doesn't mean that the High Order leaves them alone. They see these places as prime targets for their attacks. Since these countries have a higher adept population, they feel like they can bring more people to their cause. But the adepts in the Union ain't having that. A coalition is formed to protect their home from the High Order and any other supernatural threats that their regular counterparts can't handle. They call themselves the Mannonites. They become the main obstacle for the High Order, and their actions slowly begin to sway the public's perception of adepts in general. Back to Moors and Victoria, they find a way to work simple jobs that make them seem as normal as possible. Not gonna hold you, I never thought about these jobs, but since we're here, fuck it. Let's just say they worked up a bunch of odd jobs and saved enough money to open a bodega in the Bronx. Yup, they making chopped cheeses in the Bronx, bro. More years go by with Victoria and Moors enjoying the hell out of a simple life. Then they have a baby boy, who they name Azrael. Yeah, once I got to like my senior year of high school, calling this guy Makasu was starting to get cringe as hell. So I named him after the angel of death in Islam, Azrael. Moors and Victoria agreed to raise their child as a human. Once he's old enough, they'll tell him the truth. They make sure to teach him how to defend himself and control the excess amount of mana he has stored within him. He quickly masters the basics, then eventually learns how to conjure the eternal flames of hell. At a point, I also gave him the ability to conjure something I called Dark Lightning, but in the end, I didn't see a reason to give him all that. Though he excels at what his father teaches him, he struggles with the holy magic from his mother's side, such as healing and shooting light arrows. Regardless, they help him master the use of basic pyromancy and tell him to only use abilities like Hellfire if he absolutely needs to. Personality-wise, he gets his empathy from his father and willpower from his mother. Sometimes he can get a little too excited to throw hands though. He ends up becoming a Mannonite's mega fan, and makes it his goal to become one. His parents support it, but there's still the unavoidable matter of him being a god, and by joining the Mannonites, he's directly meddling in human shit. However, they're not ready to tell their son the truth yet. Plus, they did raise him as a human. Maybe this can be an exception. The years fly by as Azrael continues to mature, and then, on his 18th birthday, he signs up to take the entrance exams to join the Mannonites. I was originally going to make the story follow him when he was 14, but I didn't want to pull a shonen anime and have the world throw teenagers at planet-ending threats. 18 is still pretty young, but here in New York you qualify as an adult at that age, so that made more sense. This is where the first arc of Grimangel begins. My early high school rendition of this arc started with Makasu and his little brother, who no longer exists, named Masaru. I made Masaru for two reasons. One, I was messing around with the idea of Makasu having a brother who had angel powers, while he had Grim Reaper powers. The other was because Digimon Savers, or Digimon Data Squad as it's known in the States, was out on Jetix back then. My best friend and I had watched the Japanese dub beforehand, so we knew that the main character's name was Masaru. But when we watched Data Squad, the English dub, we found out homie's name was Marcus. That's my name! Then boom, I made this guy. In this version, there is no entrance exam. For whatever reason, these two brothers are out on the streets in the middle of New York, doing a whole lot of nothing. Then they randomly get attacked by two dudes in discount Daft Punk helmets, Chibi M and Chibi Y. These guys are characters I made back in Georgia with Nux. They were part of a little comedy series we created called Chibi Nights. I'd show you guys pages, but my history teacher at the time confiscated my notebook that had everything in it. Then she said that if I wanted it back, I had to bring my dad in with me, all because it had curses in it. And then she tried giving me a life lesson and being like, "Oh, Will Smith's grandmother said you don't have to curse to be funny." Ma'am, I don't care. Give me my book back. I think she ended up returning it a while later, but at that point, the damage was already done. I was already working on other projects. Anyway, I thought it would be cool to combine universes and sort of give Chibi Nights a revival. So I brought them into Grimangel. These guys were the Mannonites before the Mannonites were even a concept. So Chibi Y fights Makasu, because he was still named Makasu at this point. Makasu wins, then Chibi M welcomes them to the Chibi Nights. But I never touched this rendition after that. It just felt like a bad, confusing start. The second rendition of this arc, which started in 2010, skips the entrance exam completely, and begins with him already in the Mana Nights. Here he goes on a mission with his best friend Haika. So out of all the characters I made, I think I cooked the most with this one. Haika, who's inspired by my best friend Shamar, who you've seen in What Really Happened, comes from a family of legendary blacksmiths. They invented a way for the weapons they make to grant specific abilities to their users. For example, they can make a lance that would allow someone to control water. However, the weapon would still siphon the user's mana. You don't just get the powers for free. They also found a way to temporarily miniaturize their creations into little keychain-like charms, so travel is easier. Outside of making cool shit to sell, the blacksmiths from this family dedicate their lives to creating a weapon that epitomizes their essence. And I mean that quite literally. This weapon is meant to have the creator's best technique downloaded within it. Haika got the importance of that, but homie's a genius when it comes to weapon crafting and fighting. Why spend his whole life making a bunch for strangers and one for him when he could just make all of them for himself? So he spent most of his early years creating masterpiece after masterpiece. I even thought it'd be cool for him to try creating Wukong's staff, but failing and only getting some abilities like cloning. His refusal to make weapons just to sell earned him the black sheep treatment from his family. So his older sister, Lindis, became the new focus of their attention. I made her a fencer who uses wind abilities most often. She joined the Meta Knights for training purposes at the age of 18, and Haika followed her a year later. Anyway, Haika and Makasu return from their mission, with Haika getting design changes mid-chapter because I am the worst at sticking with one design. Then, for absolutely no reason at all, someone named Thomas challenges Makasu to a fight. This dude was heavily based on one of my high school friends. I made him a boxing waterbender. Essentially, he would collect water into little bubbles that surround him, and each punch would shoot a bubble or a portion of a bubble at high speeds to hit his enemy. I even created a mist stance for him where he would surround him and his enemy with steam, pull up with the Philly shell stance, and then use the mist as camouflage while using a hit and run strategy. The fight ends with Makasu as the victor, but once again, we'll never find out what happens next because I never continued it. I wasn't feeling where the story was going. I was rushing things and it led to a product that didn't make much sense. The final run wouldn't start until 2014, after I had finished drafting the background story you heard me yapping about earlier. This time I started in the entrance exam. I made Azrael, because I changed his name at this point, and Haika take it together. Sadly, this run only lasted for 3 pages. I made the mistake of trying to be a computer science major while working on this series. There were so many aspects of art that I was really bad at, like perspective and backgrounds, and my story writing could have used some work too. With all the classes I was taking, I didn't have the mental capacity to sit down and learn what I needed to improve. But I will say, these are some of the best pages of Grim Angel that I ever drew, and I'll always be proud of them. Story-wise, I wanted to start off by showcasing the dynamic between Haika and Azrael. I always imagined them as being like Gon and Killua, with Haika being like Killua and Azrael being like Gon. Later, they'd meet Raiga. Yeah, Azrael's original rival got a whole redesign and name change. Here he serves as his rival again. See, his father is the boss of the Mana Knights, so he was originally the big man on campus. Now with Haika and Azrael here, he's getting shown up a little, and he don't like that. As for his abilities, I made him a speedster who could use something I called Crimson Lightning. It's pretty much just regular lightning, but crimson. Pretty sure Akuma inspired this one, but I don't remember. It was either that, or I accidentally colored the lightning that I was making for him red, and I was like, hold up, might be cooking. Once they're allowed to go on actual missions, Raiga joins them to form a team of 3. And like Naruto, there's an experienced leader for each team that doubles as their teacher. For these guys, it's Caster, one of the strongest members of the Force. So this is what Chibi M turned into. I took him and combined his concept with Roy Mustang from FMA. He's stern and always focused on the mission, but Azrael's and Haika's goofy antics reveal a softer and more caring side to him. When it comes to his abilities, I planned for him to be very basic. He doesn't transmute his mana into elements or anything like that. He does stuff like shooting raw mana beams, creating mana barriers, and empowering his strikes with mana. Like the stuff a rookie class would get in an MMO or something. I wanted his combat style to be an extension of his stoic and focused nature. He has a plain arsenal of simple moves because he pulled a Bruce Lee and practiced them to perfection. As he leads Raiga, Haika, and Azrael, he tries to get them to do the same, and focus on improving what they already have instead of trying to learn flashy new tricks. From here, I would continue to develop the world and characters through different one-off missions. These lead to the reveal of the big bads, the High Order and Pluto. See, the former King of Hell didn't die. Using the soul magic he learned, he managed to seal himself in the deep depths of hell to recover. The followers who defected helped him find a new body, and spent years bringing him back to his past glory. Once he returns, the High Order rallies under him. They still recognize him as their messiah. Those 5 leaders who were murdered were later seen as required sacrifices. This sparks a war with the Mannonites. I also want to use this arc to go into Azrael's godly history. Still not sure how I'd reveal it, but I think Pluto being the one to do it would make the most sense. The 2 gods who stopped them from meddling with the mortals gave birth to a son who they allowed to do the same. The irony would be hilarious. But that's about it. That's a summary of pretty much all the Grim Angel lore I have stored in my brain, without going too in depth. After 2014, I shelved the idea to try to focus on school. But as I think back on it, it's clear that I never truly let go of this project. As I was suffering through college, I took Grim Angel as a failure, but never stopped stretching that creative muscle. Later on, I ended up starting a clothing line based on the 4 main elements of hip-hop. I even created this piece meant to show the passing of the torch. Then eventually I started this bad boy, the Black Mastadonte YouTube channel, another creative outlet. But now that I'm here, 9 years later, still doing this shit, I realize your passions, your true passions, have a way of bringing you to the life path that's meant for you. Because when you think about it, what I'm doing here on a base level is exactly what I was doing back when I was a kid. Conscience, honest gaming history, the Donchi experience, it's all storytelling. This shit lights my soul on fire. It's a part of who I am. So whether it be through Grim Angel or some other project that's definitely in the works but I won't reveal yet, I'll always be here telling some type of story. I believe we all have passions like this. But sometimes, like how you saw with me, we're too afraid to act on them, or we think we're not ready because we're missing a skill. But the fact is, we'll never be ready. The perfect moment for you to start that YouTube channel, create that clothing line, or write that story will never come. There will always be an obstacle. So in the end, if you feel that calling, and there's something you want to do that fills you with uncontainable joy, you just gotta go for it. It doesn't matter if you're missing experience. You develop that along the way. In fact, I'd say you start mastering things a lot quicker this way because you have a bigger goal you're trying to achieve. So younger Donchi, no, Grim Angel was not a waste of time, it was not a failure. It was a canon event that needed to happen to bring you here. And even though it was a struggle and a half getting to this point, and still is a struggle and a half if I'm being real, I can't complain. I love this shit, bro, and I'm so thankful that taking that step years ago put me in a spot where I can dedicate my life to creating. So if you take anything from this video that ended up being way longer than I expected, take this. If you have a cool idea that you really want to act on, stop waiting. Do that shit. Not for the fame, not because you think this is what the streets need, but solely because you genuinely want to make it happen. That's the only cosign you need.